I've written a lot of stories, but suddenly I wanted to write about a life as plain as water. This story might not be popular, and it might be dull, but I still want to tell it. There will be some of the romance you're looking for, but don't get your hopes up. I guess it's something only people who've been through it will understand. Both Grace and I were kids from ordinary families, just regular working people. Our life was like the surface of a calm lake. Ripples would appear now and then, but it would quickly return to stillness. You have to learn to be content with what you have, and because of that, we're both optimists. Of course, that's a perspective on life we only learned after getting knocked around a bit. Maybe some people won't like this story, but I want to say, life isn't always filled with high drama. This is what reality looks like. We're all just normal people, living normal lives. If you learn to find satisfaction in the small things, then every day could be a happy one. We didn't have secrets or barriers between us. There was just the warmth of coming home every night to have dinner together. After eating, we'd lie in bed and share funny stories from our day, gossip about the neighbors, plan our next vacation, or map out our budget for the year, figuring out how much we wanted to save. Of course, we'd argue sometimes, blaming each other for things. We'd make fun of each other, maybe even let a curse word slip. Only when we were joking, of course. If we were in a real fight, we never swore at each other. In the first few years of our marriage, we'd fight over all sorts of disagreements. But we'd usually find a way to make up by the next morning, and that night, we'd be lying together again, talking through what the other person did wrong. Our little family is like a simple, plain-spoken novel, using unadorned words to describe a simple kind of happiness. So, what follows is the daily life of two ordinary people, mixed with a little bit of sweetness. Grace and I are both millennials, born in the 80s from the same small town. It's actually kind of funny. Before a neighbor set us up, we didn't even know each other's names. We might have seen each other around and known we were from the same town, but that was it. My house was only about 200 yards from hers. Back in our day, there were no video calls or smartphones. If you wanted to get online, you had to go to an internet cafe. She was 2 years younger than me, a real homebody who went to work at a sewing factory on the edge of the city right after high school. I, on the other hand, dropped out of high school and went to work construction. In my memory, a person named Grace Miller simply didn't exist. My dad was a small-time contractor in town, so our family was a little better off than most. I worked hard under him, learning the ropes, thinking I'd take over the business someday. When I turned 20, my dad bought me my first motorcycle. It was a Suzuki, cost over $4,000, the nicest bike in our whole town. For grand might not sound like a lot now, but this was back in 2000. Most people didn't even make that much in a year. I was ecstatic, riding around town all day with my buddies. Back then, there were no electric scooters, and the few motorcycles people had were old, beat-up things. Mine was flashy, and I was damn proud of it. It was around 6:30 on a perfectly ordinary evening, and I was riding home from a job site. My future father-in-law was doubled over in pain on the side of the road. It was acute appendicitis. I saw he was from my town and recognized him, so I immediately helped him onto my bike and rushed him to the clinic in the next town over. We got there in a hurry, but they said they weren't equipped for that kind of surgery and told me to get him to the city hospital. His family didn't have a phone at home. I had an old Nokia, so I called my parents to let them know and then gunned it towards the city. I flew down the roads. When I hit a red light, I yelled an explanation to the traffic cop, and nobody stopped me. I finally got him to the hospital, every second counting. Luckily, I was young and liked to show off in front of my friends, so I always carried a wallet with a couple $100 in cash. Back then, that was more than a month's wages for a lot of guys. That money got my future father-in-law into the operating room. While I was waiting, my future mother-in-law arrived with Grace, notified by my parents. I still didn't know Grace's name at this point. I'd seen her a few times, but had no idea whose daughter she was. When Mrs. Miller found out what I'd done, she was incredibly grateful, thanking me over and over. I acted all casual on the surface, saying it was no big deal, but inside I was beaming. I'd done a good deed. I was already imagining how the story of my heroic rescue would spread through town, earning me a bit of respect wherever I went. It wasn't long before her dad was out of surgery. An appendectomy is a minor thing, but the pain is unbearable. The doctor gave some instructions and said he needed to stay for a couple of days for observation. Mrs. Miller stayed behind to look after him. I hadn't really looked at Grace yet. She just seemed like a very ordinary, quiet girl. As I was leaving, her mom called me out into the hallway. "Leo, honey, how much did you pay for the hospital deposit? I'll pay you back when we get home. I didn't bring that much with me." When I heard what it was about, I waved my hands dismissively. "Ma'am, don't worry about that. The important thing was getting him treated. Don't rush with the money. We can sort it out after he's out of the hospital." Mrs. Miller thanked me again. I was ready to head home. There wasn't much else for me to do, and they only needed one person to stay. I went out, bought some food from a nearby diner, left it on the bedside table, and said I was leaving. Leo, why don't you give Gracie a ride back? There's no point in both of them staying here. There's nowhere to sleep. As she walked me to the door of the room, she suddenly asked me to take her daughter back to our town. It was on my way, and having some company would be nice, so I agreed immediately. When I led her to my motorcycle, I got on, patted the seat behind me, and told her to hop on. It was only then that I really took a good look at her. She had a sweet face, slightly curly hair, and she wasn't very tall, maybe 5'3". She was dressed plainly. The best way to describe her was as a simple, honest girl. She fumbled a bit trying to get on the motorcycle. She'd clearly never been on one before and nearly fell off. I quickly wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her back onto the seat just as she was tipping backward. Haha, never ridden a motorcycle before? Be careful. I laughed, trying to ease the girl's embarrassment. She was only 18, her mom had told me. Her face turned bright red. She looked down and mumbled a soft, yeah, looking incredibly shy. Under the dim yellow glow of the streetlights, she suddenly looked almost beautiful. It was late, so I drove slowly on the way back. The rural roads back then were uneven and full of potholes. After I got her home safely, her younger brother was waiting at the gate. He must have just gotten back from work and didn't know what had happened. He saw me bringing his sister home and ran over, looking at me warily. Danny, I recognized him in the headlight's beam. He was one of the kids who worked on my dad's crew. Leo. The light was in his eyes, so it took him a second to recognize me. He said my name, confused. Let your sister explain it to you, I said, waving a hand. I've got to get home. I have to be at the site early tomorrow. I took off. It had been a long night, and I was exhausted. When I got home, it was no surprise that my mom gave me a stern lecture. Only after I promised it would never happen again did she finally let me go to bed. A week later, Grace's parents came to our house. I got home from work to find my dad sitting at the table with them. As soon as I walked in, they stood up to greet me. We have to properly thank Leo today, her dad said, grabbing my arm. If you hadn't been there, who knows what would have happened. He went on thanking me while I noticed the gifts they'd brought in the corner of the room. On the table next to my dad was $1,500. The hospital bill had been just over $1,400, so they gave me $1,500 even. I tried to refuse, but they insisted, so I took it. The two families had dinner together. As they were leaving, Mr. Miller clapped me on the back and said that once he was fully recovered, we had to have a proper drink together. I smiled and agreed, thinking that was the end of it. Who would have thought that in the dead of winter, when construction had stopped and I was taking a break at home, our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Gable, would come trudging through the heavy snow into our yard. Frank, you home, Frank? Oh, Mary, you're here. I can just tell you, I've got some wonderful news. Mrs. Gable was a notorious gossip, always chattering about something. It drove me nuts. I saw my mom go out to greet her and didn't think much of it. I turned around and went back to my video game. We had an old, clunky CRT television that I used for gaming. I was deep into a match of Street Fighter, but before I could finish the round, I heard my mom calling my name several times. I pushed the door open and went out. Mom and Mrs. Gable were sitting in the living room, sipping hot tea. When Mrs. Gable saw me, she grinned so wide I could see her gums, her wrinkled face beaming with delight. Leo, oh, I have some wonderful news for you today, she said, putting down her cup and standing up to size me up. She chuckled and sat back down. You're a big lad now. Must be close to 6 feet tall, right? 5'10", without shoes. I answered honestly, completely baffled about what was going on. Well, with shoes on, that's 6 feet. No wonder. You'll be 21 after the new year. It's about time you found yourself a wife. How about you go meet someone with me tomorrow? What? Isn't that a bit early? My face flushed. I was only 20. Was it already time for blind dates? Early? Someone suggested a match for you last year. A young nurse from the town clinic. She was only a temp, but she seemed like a good girl. I thought you were too young, so I didn't push it. Now she's getting married next spring. My mom immediately launched into a long-winded speech, rattling off a list of potential daughter-in-law candidates she'd been keeping an eye on. It's settled then. Tomorrow after lunch, the weather will be warmer. You'll go meet her, and if you two get along, we'll make it official, Mrs. Gable and my mom chattered on for over an hour, finally setting the time for the meeting. After Mrs. Gable left, I curiously asked my mom who the girl I was supposed to meet tomorrow was. Weren't you listening? It's the daughter of Robert Miller, the man you saved the other day, my mom replied without looking up, clearing the teacups from the coffee table. I thought back and vaguely remembered her. I'd even given her a ride home that night. I just didn't know her name. I'd heard her mother call her Gracie, so I figured I'd find out for sure tomorrow. The only tricky thing about being set up with someone from the same small town was that if it didn't work out, things would be awkward whenever you ran into each other. Oh well, I might as well just agree to it. That night, lying in my bed, I silently decided how this would go. That was the one good thing about being from the same town. If both sets of parents knew each other and agreed to the setup, it meant the older generation had already given their blessing. The rest was up to whether the two of us clicked. As long as we didn't dislike each other, the process of getting married would pretty much begin. The next afternoon, I went to Grace's house. Her dad wasn't there, just her and her aunt. Her aunt poured us some tea and then left, leaving the two of us alone in the room. Grace held her cup with both hands, her head down, her small feet in off-brand sneakers fidgeting restlessly. She was wearing new clothes, a yellow knit sweater with a thermal underneath, dark gray jeans, and white sneakers. To be honest, it was a little thin for the season. I could see she was cold and couldn't help but chuckle. She glanced up at me, then quickly looked away, shy. "What's your name?" I had to be the one to break the silence. The poor girl had probably never spent much time around guys her age. She was so timid. "Grace. I remember now. Your cousin is Jessica. We were in the same class in elementary school," I said, a light bulb going off in my head. My mom had mentioned their family connection. Suddenly, we had something to talk about. We went for what her cousin was up to nowadays, to our jobs. She worked at a small factory on the edge of the city as a seamstress, making nearly $1,000 a month. I vaguely remembered the factory. I passed it often. I casually said maybe I'd stop by and see her there sometime, which made her blush again. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something, put down her cup, and ran out of the room. She came rushing back in with a large grocery bag. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Mom bought chips and peanuts, and I forgot to put them out," she said, her face red as she poured them into a bowl and set it next to me. It's no problem. We're all neighbors here. No need to be so formal. You should probably put on a jacket, though. You look cold." Back then, the only heating in the winter was a small stove in the room, but the doors and windows weren't sealed properly, so it was probably only in the 50s inside. She pulled out another empty shopping bag and put it on the floor by my chair for the peanut shells. Only then did she nod and grab a jacket to put on. It seemed her mom hadn't bought her a new coat. The one she was wearing I'd seen her cousin wear before. It was probably a hand-me-down. In a small town, people didn't throw clothes away. If something was still in good shape, you passed it on to family. That old-fashioned frugality stuck with our generation right up until we got married. Through our conversation, I learned she also had an older sister who was away at college. I never seen her and didn't even know she existed. Grace was the middle child, with a brother just a year younger, which meant she was the one who got the least attention. I stayed for a while. When I saw her aunt return through the window, I got up to leave. She walked me to the front gate, her gentle eyes watching me as I walked away. When I got home, my mom immediately asked me how it went and if I liked her. I described Grace's height and appearance to my mom, and she immediately went out the door, probably to find her gossip circle and do some digging. I chuckled as I watched her go, a strange feeling of excitement bubbling up inside me. The matter was pretty much settled. Just the fact that I had saved her dad's life meant her family wouldn't object. And Grace herself was still young, only turning 19 after the new year, so she didn't really have a say in the matter. From our meeting today, it seemed she wasn't against it either, so the deal was sealed. That evening, when my dad got home, my mom started telling him all about it, but he cut off her enthusiastic story. As long as our family agreed to the meeting, it was a done deal. Stop your snooping and start looking at dates for them to come over and see the house. My dad's final word on the matter was confirmed soon after by Mrs. Gable. The bride's side had said they were happy for us to continue seeing each other. Next, Mrs. Gable and my mom discussed a date for the house viewing. It was just a local custom where the bride's family comes to see the groom's house. It was also a chance for the groom's extended family to meet the bride, and they'd give her a gift of $1,000 or so. Soon, the 16th arrived. My parents dragged me out of my warm bed early in the morning. We spent the whole morning cleaning the yard and tidying up the entire house. By the time we were done, it was already 10 o'clock. After lunch, around 1:30, Grace arrived on her bicycle with her mother and her aunt. My uncles, aunts, and cousins came over too. The house was packed with people, buzzing with a lively, cheerful atmosphere. A few of the neighborhood ladies also came by, peeking in from the doorway to get a look at Grace and whispering and laughing with me. "Look at Leo, about to get married. The Miller girl is a real sweetheart, you know." Several of them crowded around me, teasing me. My face was burning red. I'd never been teased like that before. Inside, Grace was just like she was at our first meeting, holding a cup with both hands, head down, sitting on the edge of a wooden chair, looking very constrained. I wanted to help her relax, but with so many people in the room, I couldn't even get close. Thankfully, it didn't last long. After about an hour, Grace's mom said they had to be going. A huge crowd of people filled our doorway to see them off. I didn't go see her after that. We barely knew each other, having only met twice. It wasn't until a few days before Christmas that I brought some gifts over to her house. Her mom cooked a huge lunch, and her dad pulled out a bottle of his best whiskey. I drank so much I was stumbling on my way home. I don't remember saying more than a few words to Grace alone. She just sat quietly beside me, putting food on my plate a couple of times. After the new year, my dad took a crew of about 20 guys back to the construction site, and I naturally went with them. Grace went back to work even earlier, so we didn't see each other at all after the holidays. Once we were back at work, I started looking out for her brother, Danny, giving him easier tasks and asking a couple of experienced guys to teach him more. He and I quickly became good friends. We'd always eat lunch together, and sometimes I'd give him a ride to the internet cafe at night. My relationship with Grace started to grow about a month later. Mrs. Gable told my mom that we should take the girl into the city to buy her some new clothes, another local custom. I took a day off and drove my dad's minivan to her house. She seemed surprised when she got in the van. Back then, there were very few cars in our town. Maybe I should get you a phone so I can actually reach you when I want to, I teased, putting my Nokia on the dashboard as she looked around the van. My mom won't buy me one. Unexpectedly, her mood sank. She looked down, her fingers fiddling with the zipper on her jacket. You and me both. My dad doesn't give me a dime from the money I earn, I said, realizing I'd said the wrong thing. For unmarried young people like us, any money we made went straight to our parents. I quickly tried to recover by making fun of myself, which seemed to cheer her up a bit. Your family is well off. You even have a car to drive, she said, her tone envious as she looked around the van's interior. It's all my dad's. Has nothing to do with me. We're both just regular workers. Having finally smoothed things over, Grace slowly started to open up. We got to a budget-friendly department store in the city, and I took her for a walk around. The clothes she was wearing looked a little out of place here. Watching the stylishly dressed people walk by, she stuck close to me, even grabbing the corner of my jacket when the crowds got thick. I brought plenty of money today. Let's get you a phone first, and we can see what's left and get you some clothes. How about that? I said, noticing how timid she was. I turned around and took her hand, leading her through a crowded section before letting go. Seeing her lack of confidence, I suddenly felt a pang of sympathy and whispered in her ear. She was tempted. She bit her lip, hesitated for a moment, but still shook her head. I can't. My mom will get mad at me. I brought it up a few more times, but she remained firm, so I had to drop it. I found a women's clothing store and started helping her pick out clothes. Since it was our first time shopping together, I wasn't going to buy cheap stuff. But every time Grace looked at an item, she would always check the price tag first. Only if she thought it was reasonable would she ask the sales associate to take it down for her to try on. A beautiful red down jacket caught her eye. She glanced at the $288 price tag, then turned to look at something else. Miss, could we have her try this one on? I directly asked the saleswoman. Grace looked at me, about to say something, but in the end, with my insistence, she went to the fitting room. While I waited for her to come out, I haggled with the saleswoman and managed to get the price down to $250. When Grace came out, my eyes lit up. The jacket was perfect for her. It changed her whole aura. She was hesitant, clearly not wanting to buy it. I knew she thought it was too expensive. It was half a month's salary for her. Without saying a word, I just held up the receipt in my hand. Already paid for. She looked at me in surprise, then gave a wry smile. Next, we want to find her a pair of heels. I pointed to a very stylish pair and told her to try them on. She secretly tugged on my jacket sleeve, a look of panic on her face. I've never worn heels that high. I looked at the shoes regretfully, then instinctively took her hand and led her over to the section with lower heels. She became very docile, letting me pick out several pairs for her. In the end, she chose one, tried it on, and nodded with satisfaction. After wandering around and getting her a full outfit, I was ready to take her to dinner, but she grabbed my sleeve again. We still haven't bought anything for you. What? For me? I was a little surprised. I hadn't heard that the groom was supposed to get clothes too, but she wouldn't have it, dragging me straight to a men's clothing store. I spent most of my time on construction sites, so new clothes would barely get worn. I tried to refuse, but she was insistent, so I finally picked out a casual outfit. The price, under $200, left her looking dissatisfied, but I was firm about not buying anything else. She would walk a few steps and stop, then a few more and stop again, refusing to go to dinner and constantly looking back towards the men's section. I tried everything, telling her I genuinely had no need for new clothes. You already spent over $600, she said in a small voice, looking down at the price tags from her clothes. So you think you have to spend as much on me as I spend on you? I couldn't help but laugh. I suddenly found her incredibly cute. It should be about the same, at least. So how much money did you bring? At that question, she went quiet again. After a moment, she whispered, my mom gave me 500 and I have 50 of my own. If you spend all that on me, you won't have any spending money for the rest of the month, I teased, feeling playful. I don't need to spend money. The factory provides food and housing. She looked completely serious, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Well then, I'll have to think hard about how to spend all your money, I said with a smile, taking her hand. It was a little cold, so I tucked it into my jacket pocket. She followed along beside me. I browsed for a bit and finally picked out a pair of blue and black sneakers. I thought the color scheme was cool at the time. The price was $48. Grace was very unhappy with my choice. I'm hungry. Let's go eat, I said, pulling her out of the store without another word. I was extra careful at the entrance. The last time I was here with a friend, his phone got stolen right at this spot. Thankfully, nothing happened this time. I found a decent-sized restaurant and ordered 3 simple dishes. Do they have dinner rolls? She whispered in my ear when I asked what she wanted to eat. It seemed she'd never been to a bigger restaurant like this. I held back a laugh and leaned in close to her ear. They don't have rolls or biscuits here. The tips of her delicate ears turned red. She looked a little surprised. Then what do they have? They have dumplings, pasta, rice, and pot pies. I pointed to the main courses on the menu to show her. She looked at it and seemed to relax. Rice then, she said, casually ordering the cheapest option. As the restaurant got busier, she subconsciously scooted closer to me. I waved the waitress over and gave her our order. I unwrapped our utensils and placed a napkin by her hand, and we ate in comfortable silence. I didn't feel like teasing her at all. Instead, my heart ached for her. In the afternoon, we just wandered around. I bought her a small jade pendant on a whim. After learning that there was a payphone outside her factory dormitory, I also bought her a phone card and wrote my cell number on the back. That evening, I took Grace to my house for dinner. After we ate, she helped clear the table. She took the dishes to the small kitchen and didn't come back for a long time. I went to check and found her at the sink, washing the dishes. Call me if you need anything from now on. I pass by your factory pretty much every day. When she was ready to go home, I walked her to her door. I pressed the jade pendant and the phone card into her hand and reminded her again. She nodded with a soft MHM and watched from her doorway as I left. A few days later, my great aunt came back from out of town to visit. When she heard I had a girlfriend, she insisted during dinner that I bring her over for her to meet. Grace had probably gone back to work, and she had only been gone for 2 days. I really didn't want to bother her, but my aunt wouldn't take no for an answer. After dinner, I ended up grabbing some fruit and heading to Grace's house. As expected, she wasn't there. I dropped off the fruit, chatted with her mom for a bit to be polite, and only mentioned my aunt's request as I was leaving. The next afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Grace. I wanted to smack myself. I knew there was a payphone where she lived. Why didn't I just ask for the number instead of going through all that trouble? We made a plan, and that evening, I picked her up on my motorcycle and brought her back to our town. My aunt was very warm towards Grace, showering her with praise, calling her a sweet and virtuous girl. When Grace was leaving, my aunt even slipped her $200 as a gift. For a long time after that, we didn't have much contact. I'd occasionally pick her up to have dinner at my place, but she'd only stay for an hour or two before leaving. As the year was drawing to a close, my parents invited a few elders over. They picked out several auspicious dates and sent them to Grace's family for them to choose a wedding day. I was only 21 at the time, and Grace was just 19. Our parents had already set our wedding date. The truth is, we weren't even really dating at that point. We just had dinner together once every month or two and rarely even talked on the phone. So, when Grace's family made their choice, I was pleasantly surprised. They chose December of the following year, giving us a full year. Life passed peacefully, without any major drama. I secretly saved up some money and took Grace to buy 2 new phones, matching flip phones. That's when our relationship really took off. We texted every night and spent hours talking on the phone. I even had to borrow money from friends to add minutes to Grace's phone when she ran out. She came home every weekend. Before, I never knew which day she'd be back, so I never went to see her. Now, she would always let me know, and like I had a radar, I'd be over at her place as soon as she got home. We were so innocent back then. We'd secretly hold hands, and the most we ever did was steal a hug in the shadows of her doorway when I dropped her off. One night, I came home to find my dad had wrapped $5,000 in red paper. He had Mrs. Gable take it to Grace's family. It was our family's gift to help us start our new life. Finally, autumn arrived. A day after my birthday, we went to the county clerk's office and got our marriage license. The woman at the counter looked at my documents and laughed. You young people sure are in a hurry to get married these days. For the occasion, Grace even went and got her hair straightened. Her long hair was naturally a bit wavy, and she didn't think it looked good. A few days later, my childhood friends found out I was officially married and insisted I treat them to drinks. At the bar, they all took turns toasting me, and I ended up drinking nearly a whole bottle of whiskey. In a drunken haze, spurred on by their dares, I stumbled into a barbershop and got my hair dyed blonde. The next morning, I woke up to my mom glaring at me. I sent a picture message to Grace. "I've changed. Do you still want me?" Grace didn't reply. She probably hadn't seen it yet. It wasn't until after 6 that evening that she messaged back. "Can I take it back?" "Nope, we have the license. You're my wife now." That was the first time I had ever called her that, even if it was just in a text message. She called me back, her clear laughter ringing through the phone. "You're just trying to scare me with that washout dye, aren't you?" "No, I drank too much yesterday, and the guys dragged me to do it. The next time I'm home for a day off, let's go out together." Grace didn't sound upset. Her voice was cheerful, which was a huge relief. Luckily, it was a time when a lot of young guys were dyeing their hair blonde, so I didn't stand out too much. After a few days of surprised looks, people got used to my new hair. A few days later, Grace came home. The next morning, she took me to a hair salon. I stood at the entrance, running a hand through my not-so-short hair, and followed her in with a goofy grin. After Grace explained what she wanted, the stylist quickly gave me a neat, layered cut. I looked in the mirror. Much better. "My aunt is coming over today. We should go buy a gift," Grace told me as we left the salon. "What? You didn't come back just to get my hair cut?" "I'm not that bored." Grace feigned anger and playfully punched my arm. Her expression was adorable. "But I also didn't want you to embarrass me." "Please, there's no way I could embarrass a giant like you at 5'3". What's wrong with that? It's not like I'm eating your food." Ever since I found out Grace was under 5'4", I'd constantly teased her about her height. At first, it would make her angry enough to hit me, but later she started firing back with sarcastic remarks. Time flew by. Early one morning, I picked her up and we drove into the city. After searching for half the day, we found a bridal shop with great reviews. The two of us, complete novices, spent the entire day taking our wedding photos. We mechanically followed the photographer's instructions while the makeup artist applied layer after layer of product to my face. What I remember most vividly is that because of the height difference between Grace and me, I not only had a half squat for the photos, but she also had to stand on a small platform. The camera flash kept going off, capturing our genuine smiles. Every time we changed outfits, the makeup artist would be busy for ages. Grace's hairstyle had to be completely redone each time. For me, it was much simpler. A spritz from a water bottle to wet my hair, a few ruffles with his fingers, and that was it. After the indoor shots, we moved outside, where we were even more stiff. The photographer had to take several extra shots. Finally, around 7 in the evening, we walked out of the bridal shop, exhausted, carrying the complimentary DVD of our photos. I drove her home. Seeing that her parents weren't around, I immediately flopped onto her bed. "Get up. What if my parents see you?" 10 minutes. Just let me lie down for 10 minutes. "No, get up now. 5 minutes. Can't I even have 5 minutes?" Grace got anxious and started pulling on my arm, trying to get me off her bed. I started acting like a child, refusing to move no matter how much she tugged. In the middle of our struggle, when she wasn't paying attention, I pulled her down into my arms. Her body instantly went rigid, and then she started to struggle. "Just for a second. Just let me hold you for a second," I said, holding her tight while trying to coax her. "You're my wife now." She struggled a few more times and then gave up, resting her head on my chest, letting me hold her quietly. I whispered softly in her ear. Today was the first time I truly felt that Grace and I were a married couple. We hadn't had the wedding yet, but legally, we already were. As the wedding approached, Grace's straightened hair started to get wavy again. She made an appointment for us at a very well-known salon. We were there for over 4 hours while she got her hair done. I was so bored I almost fell asleep in a chair. When it was time to pay, the bill was $188. I gasped. A man's haircut was $8. It was amazing how much money could be made off women. But after her hair was done, Grace looked so much prettier that I felt the money was well spent. By then, the renovations on our house were complete. I had personally supervised and designed it. Grace had also picked out styles she liked, and together, we planned our marital home. My family's property was large, and my dad had built a 6-room house. There were 2 smaller rooms on the side for the kitchen and bathroom. Then, the things from Grace's family started to arrive, bit by bit. All the furniture and appliances for our new home were provided by her parents. My family helped arrange the furniture, hang our wedding photos, and put up small decorations on the walls. The adults were in my parents' room discussing the wedding plans, while the two of us were busy arranging our new space. One day, 2 days, 3 days. After 3 days, we had finally turned our new home into a place we loved. We sat on the sofa, holding each other quietly, looking at the home theater system that cost nearly $2,000. Our hearts were filled with endless satisfaction. Every day was happy and carefree. We'd wake up, and the first thing we'd do was count down the days until our wedding. Anticipation, joy, happiness. Every day was filled with delight. The day before the wedding, we didn't see each other. We were both busy at our own homes, welcoming relatives and friends, and setting up for the ceremony. That night, my friends and I drank until 10, and then a dozen of us played cards until after 3 in the morning. I barely slept a wink. At 5 in the morning, I was up. I put on my suit and tie, held the bouquet, and, surrounded by my groomsmen, set off to pick up my bride. The driver of the lead car kept laughing. It was a 200-yard walk, but we took a long, roundabout route. You guys live too close. Why didn't you just walk over and carry the bride back? Hey, it's all about the ceremony. After handing out cash to get through the gate to Grace's yard, more cash to get through the second door, and still more cash for the third door, I finally saw her. She was in a pure white wedding dress, and under the lights, she was so beautiful it was unreal. I handed her the bouquet I had carefully chosen and placed the platinum diamond ring on her finger. After taking a family photo, I swept her up in my arms and strode out of the yard. We took another long, roundabout route back to my house. The ceremony was officiated by my uncle. We exchanged vows, honored our parents, and sealed it with a kiss. After I took Grace into her new room, her 8 bridesmaids descended on me, dragging me to the convenience store to buy them snacks and sweets. The store owner's face lit up when we walked in because a huge crowd of people had followed us, all hoping to get something for free. It was a happy occasion, so I was generous and made sure everyone got something. A couple cartons of cigarettes took care of my new brother-in-law's friends, and several large bags of snacks satisfied everyone else. Only then was I able to escape. After some good-natured teasing from the bridesmaids and my friends, and after the wedding feast, they all helped clean up our room before they left. That evening, a few of my cousins' wives came over for a bit more fun, and then Grace and I were finally left alone. Ugh, I'm so tired. I didn't sleep at all last night. It was her first night sleeping at my house, but Grace didn't seem to have any trouble adjusting. She lay down and was ready to pass out. Get up, don't sleep yet. Leave me alone. I'm already asleep. Come on, we haven't had our wedding toast. Grace immediately sat up. I took out the 2 glasses I had prepared and poured a little bit of sparkling cider. To my wife, happy wedding day. EW, to my husband. Unlike my easy declaration, Grace cringed at the cheesiness of it all, her voice shy as she called me her husband for the first time. Our arms intertwined. We drank the toast. Wifey, don't call me that. It feels weird. Gracie Bear. You big oaf. Little bunny. My zodiac sign is the ox, and hers is the rabbit, so we started playfully insulting each other. Tired from messing around, we lay in bed, holding hands. We looked at each other and both broke into smiles. We're married. Yeah, it feels like a dream. From now on, we're a team, and you'll have to look at my round face every day. Huh. Grace's face was a little round, and hearing her point it out herself made me laugh out loud. Click. Grace turned off the light. Why'd you turn off the light? To sleep. I'm tired. But we haven't done the important stuff yet. Don't talk, I want to sleep. Grace buried her head in her pillow and pulled the covers up, hiding most of her face. Well, in that case, I'll just have to start without you. Hee hee. The small night light on the headboard cast a dim glow. I gave a mischievous grin and slowly moved closer to the pretending to be asleep Grace. The next day, Grace woke up early, walked a circle in front of my mom, then came back walking stiffly and immediately lay back down. I took care of her for 2 days before she was back to normal. And so began the most carefree period of our lives. It was a time of pure, worry-free happiness. We had no troubles, and we fell asleep in each other's arms every night. She would put her cold hands and feet on me. I'd move away, and she'd follow, until I finally had to give in. She became more and more clingy. Right after we got married, she barely let me out of her sight, wanting me by her side every moment of the day. As time went on, she relaxed a bit, and I could occasionally go out for a drink with my friends. Sometimes at night, I'd play computer games. The computer was in our bedroom, and she would sometimes sit next to me and watch. Later, I taught her how to play those simple farming and pet-raising games, and she slowly started using the computer. After I got home from work, we would sit together in front of the computer and play a few rounds of Bejeweled. Not long after, she stopped playing because she was pregnant. The computer caused our first major fight. It was when I got addicted to a new game. I played until midnight. She woke up from a deep sleep, and just lost it. Annoyed from a bad run in the game, I talked back. We gave each other the silent treatment. But after just half an hour of lying in bed, she snuggled up to me, and 2 teardrops were all it took to make my heart melt. We made up immediately. Grace was extremely shy. She wouldn't even let me hold her hand in public. Only when we were back in our own little home could she relax. Sometimes I would deliberately tease her when we were out, just to see her blush and shy away from my affection. It always made me laugh. We slowly got used to each other's tempers, habits, personalities, and preferences. We gradually merged our lives, becoming intertwined. A year later, we had a chubby, adorable daughter, and Grace gained a new way to get my attention. When I was absorbed in my phone or computer, she would sit on my lap holding the baby. If I resisted, she'd hold the baby up for me to see. I was really into gaming at that time, and we argued about it a few times. I gradually cut back on gaming and started spending more time with her and the baby. I, a grown man, learned to sing lullabies while holding my child at night. I'd get the baby to sleep before 10, and then the two of us would lie in bed, chatting about trivial things until we drifted off to sleep. If I spent too long playing games on my phone, she would sneak up on me and plop down on top of me with the baby. Super chubby baby squash. The baby would giggle, her chubby little hands and feet flailing all over my face, making it impossible for me to push Grace off. I give. I'll stop playing, I'd say. She hadn't lost all the baby weight yet, and she would literally take my breath away. I'd have to surrender with a laugh. Then we would lie on either side of the bed with our baby in the middle. Watching her excitedly crawl back and forth between us, having the time of her life, filled my heart with pure happiness. Grace's world revolved around me. She would secretly buy me new clothes and surprise me with them in the evening. She always had great taste, making me look handsome, and then she'd look at me with eyes full of joy. "My little bunny, you have amazing taste. Of course. You know who you're married to." I'd always give her a thumbs up, and she'd put her hands on her hips and proudly lift her chin. Occasionally, I'd get a little mischievous myself when she was lying in bed. I'd let the baby crawl on her face, and then I'd tickle her until she was almost in tears, begging me to stop. The most intense time, she refused to surrender, writhing on the bed like a worm and squeezing out a couple of tears. After I let her go, she tackled me and mercilessly tickled me for what felt like an eternity before finally letting up. When I got paid, I would proudly slip a thick wad of cash under her pillow, just to hear her shriek of delighted surprise when she found it. When the baby got a little older, Grace wanted to find a job, but I talked her out of it. After some discussion, we rented a small storefront on the main street in town and opened a baby supply shop. My mom could help watch our daughter, which gave Grace some freedom. I discovered a hidden gem of a restaurant that made this incredible crispy fish where even the bones were soft. Grace loved it, so I would bring one home for her from time to time. In the autumn of the 3rd year, Grace was pregnant again. She managed to keep the shop open for another 6 months, but eventually, we had to close it down. After our son was born, I also bought a new car. Life was getting better and better. The only problem was the lack of sleep. By the time I got home at night, there was barely any time for us to just be together. Our son was born 2 weeks premature and had a weaker constitution. He caught every cold that went around, and we became frequent visitors to the hospital. During that time, whenever Grace called me during the day at work, my heart would sink because it usually meant another trip to the hospital. We struggled through a tough 2 years, but things finally improved. Our son's health got better, and a huge weight was lifted off her shoulders. We started taking short trips to nearby places, usually for just a day or two, because anything longer was too difficult. We decided to take a new set of family photos. In the pictures, we looked just as we did years ago, only with a lot less of our youthful innocence. When our son was a little older, she found a new job in the city, working as a sales associate in a clothing store. From then on, I never had to buy my own clothes again. She would bring home a new outfit for me every so often. One time, I took the kids to the mall where she worked. It happened to be Valentine's Day. There were people everywhere giving flowers and gifts. I saw a hint of envy in Grace's eyes, but she didn't say anything. For the first time, I felt like I had failed her. I carefully picked out a bouquet of pink roses. While I was waiting for them to be delivered, I also went to a jewelry store downstairs and bought a silver bracelet. When I walked up to her with a huge bouquet of pink roses, the look on her face told me she was completely stunned. Her 3 coworkers crowded around, looking at us with envy. I thought I'd be tortured by all the happy couples at home today, but I guess there's no escaping it at work. Click. I'm taking a picture to show my husband what a real romantic looks like. The 3 women chattered away, which finally brought Grace back to her senses. She took the flowers with a blush. Her coworkers then insisted we pose for a few photos for them. Afterwards, I booked a table at a restaurant inside the mall, and our little family of 4 had a lovely dinner. Yeah, my mind just went completely blank, she answered honestly when I asked her about it later that night. Lying in bed, Grace looked at her phone, smiling foolishly. What are you looking at, you goofball? I asked, seeing her grinning like an idiot. I leaned over and saw that she had posted about it on Facebook, and the screen was filled with likes and comments. Honey, thank you, she said, tossing her phone aside and tackling me onto the bed with a happy laugh. I immediately started tickling her, and we tumbled around, wrestling for a while. Tired from playing, we finally noticed our daughter standing by the bed, her eyes squinted with joy, clapping and cheering us on. Grace's eyes went wide, and she nearly kicked me off the bed. You couldn't have been more careful? What if our daughter saw that? I clutched my side where she'd kicked me and scooped our daughter up. Sweetie, who won just now, Mommy or Daddy? Mommy, you almost fell off, our daughter said, pointing at Grace while her other little hand grabbed my ear. Daddy won. Your mommy can't even get up anymore, but Daddy can still hold you, I said, gesturing for our daughter to look at Grace, who was still lying flat on the bed. Our daughter giggled. Because I had a positive attitude and Grace kept me looking young. One time when I went to the mall to see her, a new co-worker of hers asked, Is it your younger brother? That's my husband. He's 2 years older than me. What? I thought he was a few years younger than you. Grace's face fell. From that day on, she started a meticulous morning and night skincare routine. I would hold back my laughter and call her big sister, which always made her furious. One time we were bickering about it, and I even called her Annie. She immediately shot back with my dear nephew. After that, our nicknames for each other became a chaotic mess. We'd argue endlessly, and it would always end with a physical fight to determine the winner. Even though I always managed to overpower her, she'd be right back at it the next time. One day, I had the day off and was at home with the kids. My mom took our son out to play, and our daughter was in the living room watching cartoons. I'm the best, she shouted, raising her little hands in victory, inspired by the monster being defeated on screen. Who's the best? I asked amused. Me. It's me. Our daughter has always been very competitive, always wanting to be number one. Seeing this, I decided to have some fun with her. Okay, then who's the silliest? I'm the silliest. Who's the dumbest? I'm the dumbest. I almost dropped the phone I was recording with. I held back my laughter and sent the video to Grace. They say daughters take after their fathers. Looks like it's true, she quickly replied. You gave birth to her. You had a part in it too. We debated back and forth via text. I showed the video to my mom, and she couldn't stop laughing. Around the new year, she spent nearly a whole month's salary on a designer outfit for me, but she didn't buy anything for herself. Gaming became a thing of the past. I started thinking about how to make more money every day. All the trendy hobbies I used to have were abandoned. The prayer beads I had been polishing for years were left to collect dust. When our daughter was 6, a colleague gave me a tiny, all-black kitten. It didn't have a single stray hair. It would disappear completely into shadows. It was only a month old, smaller than the palm of my hand. The day I brought it home, both my son and daughter fell in love with it. They would even crowd around its little bed during meals. My father unfortunately had a stroke. Although we caught it early and there weren't any major long-term effects, I made him retire so he could rest at home. The weight of supporting the family now fell on my shoulders. I didn't take over my dad's business. Instead, I opened a small home remodeling company in the city. During this time, it seemed my dad did have some lingering effect from the stroke. He became very irritable and was often critical of Grace, frequently finding fault with her. I did my best to mediate, but Grace was often hurt and upset. Those were stressful days. An idea began to form in my mind, and I started saving money diligently. My life became a cycle. Go to work, come home, sleep, and go back to work. It was a monotonous, simple existence. When I was 32, I bought a small 2-bedroom apartment. We took out a 30-year mortgage, and so began our days of making monthly payments. Life was a bit tighter, but it didn't dampen our spirits. The new place wasn't big, but we were incredibly content. We spent a few thousand on renovations and moved into our little home. No longer living with my parents, the two of us, along with our children, started a new chapter. Life became much more peaceful. But the peace didn't last. Our daughter was fine, a self-motivated student, but our son was always getting into trouble, and his grades were consistently at the bottom of the class. I had to supervise his homework every night after work, and conflicts began to arise in our family. Grace and I were both trying our best to make things work and maintain the status quo. Eventually, we made a decision to send our son to a private school. The tuition was expensive, but we no longer had to worry about his studies. With just the two of us left at home, it suddenly felt like a huge weight had been lifted. Whoever got home from work first would cook dinner, and we'd do the chores together. It felt like we were back in the sweet, early days of our marriage. Every weekend, when the kids were home from school, we would take them back to our old town for 2 days to spend time with their grandparents. My dad stopped finding fault with Grace all the time. He was overjoyed every time we came back. Another winter came, and the new year was approaching. I secretly went to find Grace one afternoon and had her take half a day off. I took her out for a nice dinner, and then we went shopping for clothes for her. Hey, look at the stockings that girl is wearing. They look great, I said, pointedly looking at a girl walking by. Grace heard me and was furious. I gave you 2 children, you know. My body is out of shape now, and you have the nerve to complain? I had recently gotten into fitness because my beer belly was becoming more and more noticeable. 6 months of hard work had made my stomach flat again, and I even had the faint outline of a six-pack. But Grace's body never fully recovered after having our son. She had a little pooch on her belly, a roll of fat when she sat down, which I loved to pinch. And every time I did, she would fly into a rage, kicking and hitting me. Whenever I brought up her figure, she would be angry for a while. This time, since we were out in public, she just grumbled for a bit and let it go. After buying clothes, we went to see a movie. It had been a long time since we felt like we were dating. In the darkness of the theater, I took her hand, and we looked at each other and smiled. When we got home, neither of us mentioned our little solo outing, because our son and daughter would have thrown a fit. But it seemed we both enjoyed the feeling. After the new year, we secretly went and had a new set of wedding photos taken, just the 2 of us. The day we picked them up, I placed them next to our old photos, looking at how much we had changed over the past decade. Gracie Bear, I really envy you for finding such a handsome husband. Please, you're an old man now. Stop trying to act young. You're an old hag yourself, and you dare to talk? My teasing was met with a sharp comeback, and we started bickering again. Finally, she started pulling me toward the bedroom. I resisted with all my might. Is that all you've got? If you can't back it up, don't start with me next time, she said triumphantly, looking at me with disdain. I can't back it up? Who was it that used to cry and beg for mercy? I couldn't stand for that. I shot back with my own threats and pulled her into the bedroom. The next day, I rubbed my sore back and considered whether we should start sleeping in separate rooms. The once sweet and gentle little bunny had turned into a man-eating tigress. For my 36th birthday, we cooked a big meal at our old house in the country, bought a small cake, and the whole family had a lively and satisfying dinner. That night, I held Grace in my arms as we lay in bed. Wife, I feel so much pressure. It's okay. You still have me. Our story has come this far. To some, it may seem as plain as water, but I still feel incredibly happy. Our journey together has been like a straight line, without dramatic waves or unforgettable moments. But after so many years together, the bond of family has become stronger than romance. She has long since become my kin, an inseparable part of my life. We will walk hand in hand through the rest of our quiet lives. A lifetime can be long, and maybe it's a regret not to have a passionate, earth-shattering love story. But a simple, quiet life is also a form of happiness. A healthy family is happiness. Kinship is also love, a love that has nothing to do with fleeting romance.